The morning air in the Rockies carried that sharp chill that made every breath feel alive. But on that day, the only thing that froze me was the sight of two sheriff's deputies standing on our porch, hands near their holsters, voices firm and official. Step outside, one said, hands visible. Sarah blinked, her paintbrush still dripping white on the cabin railing she'd been working on. "Excuse me," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. Behind the deputy stood Karen Peaton, our self-appointed neighborhood monarch. Her smile gleamed like glass, the kind that could cut deep. Her navy blazer glittered with HOA president pins, little emblems of power she wore like medals. "Officers," Karen began sweetly, "these people have been squatting here for weeks. This cabin falls under the Pine Ridge Lakeside HOA, and they refuse to register or pay their dues." Sarah's brow furrowed, confusion written across her face. "This is our property," she said, her voice trembling just enough for me to notice. The taller deputy, a man with gray temples and a calm authority that came from decades on the job, turned toward her. "We'll need to see proof of ownership." Without missing a beat, Sarah reached into her back pocket and unfolded a paper she always carried. "Here's the deed," she said firmly. "This property was transferred to me 3 months ago, when my Uncle Robert passed. You'll see my name, Sarah Mitchell, listed as sole owner." The deputy examined it carefully. I could see his expression shift, first neutral, then annoyed. He turned toward Karen. "Mrs. Peaton, this deed clearly proves ownership. Care to explain why you reported a homeowner as a trespasser?" Karen's mouth opened and closed, her confidence cracking. I have HOA documentation," she stammered, her usual commanding tone now thin as paper. "The records show." But the deputy cut her off, voice low with irritation. Making a false report is a serious offense. I suggest you double-check your records next time." As the realization hit her, Karen's smugness melted. For the first time, she looked small, standing there with her iPad and fake authority, outmatched by simple truth. But as I stood watching her retreat to her spotless white Lexus, a cold certainty settled in my chest. This wasn't over. This woman wasn't going to let it go. It had all started 3 months earlier. Sarah and I had sat in a polished Denver law office, still numb from grief. Her Uncle Robert, a lifelong forest ranger and a man of quiet strength, had passed away. He'd left Sarah his pride and joy, a log cabin nestled on 5 acres of wild Colorado land. "The property is free and clear," the lawyer told us, sliding papers across the mahogany desk. "No liens, no mortgage, and it predates any homeowners association in the area." We spent the weekend driving up the winding mountain roads with our truck packed to the brim. When the cabin came into view, I felt my chest swell. The lake sparkled like glass, the mountains painted the horizon in shades of gold and green, and the old pine trees whispered in the wind. Inside, it was rustic but perfect, with beams, a stone fireplace, wide windows framing the Rockies like a painting. It smelled of pine and smoke and memory. We thought it was paradise, until we saw the signs. Small metal plaques nailed to trees and fence posts. Pine Ridge Lakeside HOA community standards enforced. Sarah frowned. Uncle Robert never mentioned an HOA. "Probably for the new houses down the hill," I said, shrugging it off. But I was wrong. A week later, a white Lexus glided up our gravel driveway. Out stepped a woman with perfect hair and sharper eyes, Karen Peaton. "Good morning," she said, crisp as frost. "I'm Karen Peaton, president of the Pine Ridge Lakeside HOA." I wiped my hands on my jeans. "Nice to meet you. I'm James Mitchell, and this is my wife, Sarah. We just inherited the cabin." Karen smiled in that way people do when they think they're about to put you in your place. "I see. Well, I don't have any record of that transfer. Property ownership must be approved by the HOA board." "With all due respect," Sarah said, her voice firm, "this land has been in my family for over 40 years. It's not under your HOA. Karen laughed, short and sharp. "Oh, honey, everything within 5 miles of the lake is. I already see violations. That lumber pile, your grass, that bird feeder, strictly prohibited. There's a $5,000 transfer fee, and annual dues are $3,000. I'll send the paperwork." Then she turned and drove off, leaving nothing but dust and disbelief. Over the next few weeks, our piece unraveled. Karen showed up constantly, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning our property like a hawk looking for prey. Unapproved mailbox. Flag size not regulation. Improperly stacked firewood. Sarah seethed. "She's harassing us, James. Uncle Robert never dealt with this nonsense." That night, I brewed coffee and opened my laptop. I started digging, and what I found made my stomach twist. The Pine Ridge Lakeside HOA had only existed for 8 years. It was formed to manage a luxury housing development on the South Shore. Our cabin was on the North Shore, built decades earlier, zoned rural residential, and completely outside their jurisdiction. When I showed Sarah the county maps, her eyes widened. "So she's got no power over us?" "None," I said. "She's bluffing." The next time Karen arrived, waving a stack of fines, we were ready. "Mrs. Peaton," I said, "this property isn't under your HOA." Her smile faltered. "That's where you're wrong." "Then show us your official maps," Sarah said. "They are confidential." "Then we'll get them from the county," I said. Her face turned red. "Don't come crying to me when the sheriff gets involved." I laughed then, though I shouldn't have, because 3 weeks later, she made good on that threat. And that's how I came home to find my wife surrounded by police, accused of breaking into her own home, thanks to a woman who thought she was above the law. But Karen had just declared war on the wrong couple. The next morning, the mountain air felt heavier. Sarah sat on the porch, still shaken. She called the cops on me. "James, what if I didn't have the deed?" "They could have." Her voice broke. "She could have gotten you shot," I said softly. "We're not letting this slide." By noon, I had installed 8 high-resolution cameras around the cabin. Every corner, every path, covered. Then we started knocking on doors. The first to open was Tom and Ellen Brewster, a couple who'd lived nearby since 1995. "Oh, we know Karen," Tom said bitterly. "Fined us $3,000 for shutters she said were non-compliant. We're not even part of her HOA." Next came Mike Garza, a third-generation cabin owner. He showed us a folder thick with bogus citations. "She keeps saying her HOA map includes my land, but the county says otherwise. She just won't stop." And then there was Dorothy Chen, an 80-year-old widow who used to work for the county planning office. Over tea, she spread old survey maps across her table. "I remember when the HOA was formed," she said. "It never covered your side of the lake. But rumor is someone's been altering the official maps." "Someone?" Sarah asked. Dorothy gave a knowing smile. "Someone with a taste for control." We hired Patricia Hawkins, a property law attorney with the composure of a chess grandmaster. Fraud, harassment, false 911 reports. Patricia summarized after hearing our story. If what you're saying checks out, she could be in serious trouble. 2 weeks later, she called. "You're not going to believe this. The HOA's internal maps don't match the county's official records. Someone digitally altered them 2 years ago, after Karen became president." "Altered how?" I asked. "They added 40 extra properties to the HOA boundary, properties that never belonged. That's over $200,000 in illegal dues and fines." Sarah's jaw tightened. "So she's been stealing from everyone." "Exactly," Patricia said. "And we're filing formal charges." The investigation hit Pine Ridge like a thunderstorm. County officials reviewed years of records, interviewed homeowners, and uncovered evidence of forgery and embezzlement. Karen, once untouchable, began to unravel. She sent threatening letters signed by a brother-in-law, pretending to be the HOA's lawyer. She called emergency board meetings just to rant about the Mitchell problem. But her power was slipping through her manicured fingers. When the public hearing came, the room overflowed. Dozens of homeowners waved fake fines and forged notices in the air. Karen sat at the front, her perfect hair limp, her smile gone. The chairwoman spoke first. "Mrs. Peaton, the county has verified multiple falsified records. Effective immediately, the Pine Ridge Lakeside HOA will cease enforcement outside its lawful boundaries. All fines and dues are to be refunded with interest." Karen shot to her feet. You can't do this. I built this community. The chairwoman's voice went cold. No, Mrs. Peaton. You exploited it. The applause shook the walls. Deputies moved in and placed Karen in handcuffs. 2 weeks later, the news hit statewide. 37 counts of fraud, 1 count of racketeering, dozens of falsified records. Karen Peaton was sentenced to 5 years in prison and ordered to repay $450,000 in restitution. Sarah and I watched the news from our porch, the same one where it had all begun. The camera caught Karen being led away in cuffs, shouting, "Without me, property values will collapse." The anchor smiled faintly. Former HOA President Karen Peaton will serve a sentence in state prison. I glanced at Sarah, the fading sunset painting her face gold. Justice looks good on this mountain, I said. She smiled. Uncle Robert would have loved that. The mountains were quiet again, finally, and for the first time in months, we could breathe,